I was working the checkout counter at a grocery store in Munich when an American woman stood frozen in front of the bagging area. She had this look on her face like someone just asked her to solve a calculus problem. Her groceries were piling up on the conveyor belt. Milk, bread, cereal, canned goods. The cashier was scanning items at lightning speed, which is normal in Germany. But this woman wasn't moving. She just stared at her cart like it betrayed her. "Excuse me," she finally said. "Where's the bagger person?" I glanced at my coworker. We both knew what was coming. "There is no bagger," I told her gently. "You bag your own groceries here." Her eyes went wide. "But I have like 30 items. How am I supposed to bag while she's scanning?" The line behind her was growing. A German man sighed and checked his watch. The cashier kept scanning, completely unbothered. This is the system. You bag fast or you move aside and bag at the counter behind the registers. But this woman didn't know that. She started grabbing items with both hands, shoving them randomly into bags. A carton of eggs went under a jar of pickles. Bread got crushed beneath canned soup. She was panicking, sweating, apologizing to everyone. When she finally finished, she looked exhausted, like she'd just run a marathon. All because the system was different than back home. That moment stuck with me because it wasn't really about bagging groceries. It was about how we react when the systems we rely on suddenly don't exist. Americans grow up in a specific environment with specific rules. Then they travel and discover that half the world operates on completely different logic. And instead of adapting, they freeze, they panic, they double down on what they know, even when it doesn't work. I've seen it happen over and over. At train stations where people expect customer service desks to hold their hand through buying tickets. At restaurants where they're confused about why waiters don't check on them every 5 minutes. At banks where forms are only in the local language and nobody thinks that's strange. The problem isn't that Americans are bad travelers. The problem is that American systems are designed around convenience and customer service. Everything is explained. Everything is easy. There's always someone to help. So when that safety net disappears, it feels like the whole world is broken. But the world isn't broken. It's just different. And those differences reveal something interesting about how we're trained to think. This is about what happens when Americans step outside their comfort zone and realize that their normal isn't universal. These are real stories from real people who watched it happen. Some are funny, some are frustrating. All of them show the same thing. When the system changes, panic sets in. My cousin worked at a train station in Amsterdam for 3 years. She told me about an American couple who showed up 15 minutes before their train to Paris was supposed to leave. They had no tickets. They walked straight to the platform entrance and got stopped by the gate. "Tickets, please," my cousin said. "We'll buy them on the train," the man replied, already moving past her. She blocked his path. "No, sir, you need to buy tickets before boarding." He looked annoyed. "In America, you can buy tickets on Amtrak while you're riding. Just come through with a scanner thing." "This isn't Amtrak," she explained. "This is European Rail. You must have a ticket before you board. You can buy one at the ticket machines over there." The man checked his watch. "We don't have time for that. Our train leaves in 12 minutes. "Then you should have arrived earlier," my cousin said. "Most passengers buy tickets online days in advance." His wife jumped in. "This is ridiculous. Why can't we just get on and pay later? We have credit cards. We're not trying to skip payment." My cousin stayed calm. "The system doesn't work that way. If you board without a ticket, you'll be fined, possibly removed from the train. Please go buy tickets now if you want to catch this train." They finally rushed to the machines, but neither of them spoke Dutch or French. The machines had an English option, but the man kept pressing the wrong buttons. He selected a regional ticket instead of international. He entered the wrong destination code. Time was running out. His wife started yelling at the machine like it could hear her complaints. They missed their train. They had to rebook for 4 hours later and pay extra fees. The whole time, they kept saying the system was designed to scam tourists. But really, the system just assumed you'd take responsibility for your own travel. No hand-holding. No customer service agent walking you through every step. That's the European model, and they weren't ready for it. Another friend of mine drives a taxi in London. He picked up an American tourist near Heathrow who wanted to go to central London. The guy got in and immediately asked, "Do you take card?" "Yes, contactless or chip and pin," my friend said. "What about cash?" "I take cash too, but most people use cards here." The tourist relaxed. "Okay, good. In the States, every cab takes card now. It's the law in some cities." They drove into London. Traffic was heavy, which is normal. But the American kept checking his phone and getting more agitated. Finally, he said, "Why are we going so slow? Is there an accident?" "No, sir. This is just London traffic during rush hour. But Google Maps says the trip should take 30 minutes. We've been driving for 40. My friend glanced at the rearview mirror. Google gives you the fastest possible time with no traffic. That almost never happens in real life here. The tourist huffed. "This is why I hate foreign taxis. You guys take the long route to charge more." My friend bristled but stayed professional. "Sir, you can watch the GPS on my screen. I'm taking the most direct route. London just has more cars than road space." When they finally arrived, the fare was higher than the tourist expected. He argued about it for 5 minutes before finally paying. Then, he didn't leave a tip. In his mind, the driver had scammed him. In reality, he just didn't understand that. Traffic patterns are different in a city where public transport is king and driving is secondary. I experienced this myself once at a bus station in Prague. An American woman stood at the ticket window arguing with the attendant. She wanted to buy a ticket to Vienna, but she didn't have exact change, and the attendant didn't have enough coins to break her large bill. "Can't you just take my card?" she asked. "This window only accepts cash," the attendant said in broken English. "That's insane. It's 2025. Who doesn't take cards?" The attendant shrugged. "There is an ATM around the corner. Or you can buy tickets online." "I don't want to use an ATM. I'll get charged foreign transaction fees. Then buy online." "I don't have data. My phone plan doesn't work here." They went in circles for 10 minutes. The woman kept insisting the system was backwards. She couldn't understand why a business would operate cash only in the modern age. But the reality is that many smaller transit stations across Europe still prefer cash because it's simpler for their accounting and they don't want to pay card processing fees. It's not backwards. It's just a different priority. Eventually, another passenger helped her break her bill at a nearby cafe. But the whole interaction revealed this pattern. Americans expect systems to bend toward their convenience. Contactless everything. Cards everywhere. Digital solutions for every problem. When that infrastructure doesn't exist, they see it as a failure rather than just a different choice. The transportation panic happens because American systems are built around the car. Everything else is secondary. Trains, buses, trams, they're all seen as backup options. But in Europe and Asia, public transit is the primary system. It's efficient, it's fast, and it assumes you know how to navigate it independently. There's no buffer, no grace period for confusion. And that mismatch creates chaos for travelers who expect to be guided through every step. My best friend worked as a waiter in Barcelona for 2 summers. He said American tourists were the easiest to spot because They'd sit down and immediately start looking around for someone to bring them water. In Spain, you have to ask for water. It's not automatically served, but Americans expect it on the table within 30 seconds. One night, a group of 4 Americans sat in his section. They ordered food and wine. Everything went smoothly. The meal took about 90 minutes, which is normal for Spanish dining culture. But the Americans kept glancing at their watches like they had somewhere urgent to be. When they finished eating, they sat there waiting. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Finally, one of them flagged my friend down. "Can we get the check?" he asked. My friend nodded. "Of course. I'll bring it right over." He printed the bill and brought it to the table. Then he walked away to give them space. Another 10 minutes passed. The Americans were still sitting there looking confused. One of them waved again. We're ready to pay?" My friend returned to the table. "Yes, whenever you're ready. Just place your card or cash in the holder." "Aren't you going to take it?" "I'll come back in a few minutes to process it." "Take your time." The man looked frustrated. "Why can't you just take it now?" My friend paused. "In Spain, we don't rush guests. You pay when you're ready to leave. I'll check back soon." He walked away again. But the Americans didn't understand. In the US, waiters bring the check, wait nearby, take your payment immediately, and return with the receipt. It's fast. It's efficient. The table turns over quickly. But in Spain, meals are social events. Lingering is expected. Rushing people out is considered rude. So waiters give you space after bringing the bill. Eventually, my friend processed their payment. Then came the tipping confusion. The Americans left a 20% tip on the table in cash. My friend noticed and felt awkward. In Spain, tipping isn't mandatory. Most people round up or leave a few coins. A 20% tip signals either that you don't understand local custom or that the service was so extraordinary you feel compelled to overpay. The Americans thought they were being generous. But to my friend, it felt like they were treating him like he needed charity. It's a cultural mismatch that happens constantly. Americans tip because that's how waiters make their living back home. Europeans pay waiters fair wages, so tipping is just a small bonus. A co-worker of mine had a similar experience working at a cafe in Copenhagen. An American couple ordered coffee and pastries. When the bill came, it was around 100 Danish kroner, which is about $15. The man handed over his credit card. "Do you need me to add a tip?" he asked. My coworker smiled. "No need. Service is included in the price. But don't you make money from tips?" "I make a salary. Tips aren't expected here." The man looked uncomfortable. "But I want to tip you. You were really nice." "That's very kind, but honestly, it's not necessary." He insisted on leaving 10 kroner anyway, which is less than $2. My coworker accepted it to avoid an awkward standoff. But afterward, she told me she found the whole exchange strange. The American seemed almost guilty about not tipping, like he was breaking some moral rule. He couldn't accept that different systems have different norms. I saw this happen in reverse once too. I was in New York visiting a friend, and we went to a diner. A European tourist at the next table finished his meal and left a $5 bill on a $40 check. The waiter came over looking upset. "Excuse me, sir. Was something wrong with the service?" The tourist seemed confused. "No, everything was fine." "Then why did you leave such a small tip?" "I left what I normally leave at home. A few dollars." The waiter's face hardened. "In America, standard tip is 18 to 20%. You left barely 10%. The tourist was stunned. "I didn't know. No one told me." "It's common knowledge," the waiter said coldly, walking away. The tourist sat there looking embarrassed and frustrated. From his perspective, he'd followed his home country's rules. From the waiter's perspective, he'd been stiffed. Neither was wrong, but the system collision created tension. This happens with payment methods too. I worked at a small bakery in Vienna, where we only accepted cash or local debit cards. No credit cards. An American woman came in and ordered 3 pastries. When I told her the total, she pulled out an American credit card. "We don't accept that card," I said. "Cash or local debit only." She stared at me. "Are you serious?" "It's a Visa. Visa works everywhere." "Not here. We're too small to afford the processing fees." "This is so backwards. What if I don't have cash? There's an ATM 2 blocks down." She left in a huff, muttering about how Europe was stuck in the past. But the reality is that small businesses across Europe choose not to accept credit cards because the fees cut into their already thin margins. It's a calculated decision, not ignorance. Americans just assume that because credit cards dominate in the States, they should dominate everywhere. The payment panic happens because Americans are used to systems that prioritize customer convenience above all else. Tipping is mandatory because wages are low. Cards are universal because infrastructure is strong. Service is fast because efficiency equals profit. But other countries built their systems around different values: fair wages, slower meals, local business protection. When Americans encounter those differences, they interpret them as problems to fix rather than alternatives to respect. I lived in Japan for 6 months teaching English. One of my American colleagues couldn't adjust to the trash system. In Japan, you have to separate your garbage into specific categories: burnable, non-burnable, plastic, cans, bottles, paper. Each category gets collected on different days. You can't just throw everything into one bin. My colleague found this infuriating. "Why is throwing away trash so complicated?" he complained. "Back home, you just toss it all in one bag and the truck takes it. Here, they recycle everything possible," I explained. "It reduces waste and helps the environment. But it takes so much time. I have to read labels and figure out which bin every single item goes in. You get used to it after a few weeks." He never did. He kept mixing categories and leaving bags out on wrong days. The neighborhood association left polite notes on his door explaining the system. He ignored them. Eventually, the building manager had to have a direct conversation with him. He acted like he was being personally attacked. "I'm just trying to throw away trash," he said. "This isn't that serious." But in Japan, it is serious. The system works because everyone participates. When one person refuses to follow the rules, it creates problems for the whole community. My colleague saw it as unnecessary bureaucracy. His neighbors saw it as basic respect. Another friend told me about an American exchange student in Germany who couldn't understand quiet hours. In Germany, there are legally enforced quiet times, usually from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. on weekdays and all-day Sunday. You're not supposed to make loud noise during these periods. No vacuuming, no power tools, no loud music. The American student loved throwing parties. He'd invite people over on Saturday nights and play music until 2 or 3 in the morning. His neighbors complained multiple times. He laughed it off. "It's the weekend," he said. "People need to relax," his roommate tried to explain. "Sunday is a rest day here. People take it seriously. You're not supposed to disturb the peace. That's ridiculous. I should be able to do what I want in my own apartment." The complaints escalated. Eventually, the landlord threatened eviction. The student was shocked. In his mind, he was just having fun. In Germany, he was violating a cultural and legal norm. The system assumes everyone shares responsibility for community peace. Americans are trained to think of their homes as private kingdoms, where they can do whatever they want. I experienced a milder version of this in Sweden. I was staying with a host family, and one morning I woke up early and decided to do laundry. I started the washing machine around 6:30 a.m. My host came downstairs looking stressed. "Please don't run the machine this early," she said gently. "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I'd get a head start on the day." "I understand. But the walls are thin. The machine is loud. It wakes the neighbors." I felt embarrassed. In America, I'd run laundry whenever I wanted without thinking about noise. But in Sweden, Being considerate of neighbors is baked into daily life. It's not optional. It's expected. These systems exist because many countries prioritize collective harmony over individual freedom. The trash system works because everyone participates. Quiet hours work because everyone respects them. It's a fundamentally different philosophy than the American emphasis on personal choice. I saw this clash at a swimming pool in Switzerland. An American family showed up with their kids. The kids were loud, splashing, yelling, running on the deck. The lifeguard blew his whistle and asked them to calm down. The father got defensive. They're just kids having fun. That's what pools are for. The lifeguard remained firm. This is a public pool. Other people are trying to relax. Please keep noise to a reasonable level. Are you kidding? It's a pool. It's supposed to be loud. Other swimmers were staring now. In Switzerland, public pools are treated like shared spaces where everyone moderates their behavior. Loud American families stick out because they bring a different expectation. Pools back home are chaotic, high-energy environments. Swiss pools are calm and orderly. The family eventually left early, complaining that the pool had too many rules. But the rules exist to make the space comfortable for everyone, not just one group. My roommate in Austria told me about an American tourist who walked into a small bakery wearing shoes. In Austria, some very traditional homes and small shops have a shoes-off policy. There's usually a sign or a small shoe rack near the entrance. This American missed the sign and walked straight in with dirty sneakers. The baker looked horrified. "Excuse me, shoes off, please." The tourist glanced down. "Oh, sorry. I didn't see the sign." "It's okay, but please remove them now." "Wait, you want me to walk around in socks?" "Yes, or barefoot if you prefer." The tourist looked around at the other customers who were all in socks or slippers. "This is so weird. What if my feet smell?" The baker didn't smile. "Then you should have worn clean socks." The tourist removed his shoes but kept muttering about how unsanitary it was to walk around without shoes in a food establishment. He didn't understand that the policy exists because shoes track in dirt from outside. Going barefoot keeps the interior clean. It's the opposite of unsanitary. These small daily systems trip up Americans constantly because they're trained to see their habits as universal defaults. Shoes indoors, loud families, running appliances whenever convenient, throwing all trash in one bin. They're not bad habits. They're just American habits. But when the system changes, those habits stop working. And instead of adjusting, people panic. They dig in, they insist their way is right, and the new system is wrong. I was helping a friend move apartments in Brussels last year. We hired a small moving company. The movers showed up exactly on time, which surprised my American friend. He was used to movers arriving anywhere from 30 minutes early to 2 hours late. He kept saying, "Wow, they're so punctual." But punctuality is the system in Belgium. Businesses run on time. Appointments start when they're scheduled. Being late is considered disrespectful. My friend kept acting like it was some miracle, when really it was just a different standard. As they loaded the truck, one of the movers asked where we wanted to stop for lunch. My friend looked confused. "Lunch? We'll just grab something quick and keep working." The mover shook his head. "No, we take a proper lunch break. 1 hour, but that'll slow us down. It's required by law. We can't work through lunch." My friend was frustrated, but he had no choice. We all sat down at a cafe and ate slowly. The movers chatted and relaxed. My friend kept checking the time. When we finally finished and got back to work, he said, "That felt like such a waste of time." But it wasn't a waste. It was the system. Belgian labor laws protect workers by mandating real breaks. Rushing through lunch isn't seen as efficient. It's seen as unhealthy. My friend couldn't accept that because he'd been trained to equate speed with value. That's what all these stories come down to. Americans grow up in systems that prioritize convenience, speed, and individual choice. Those systems work great inside America, but they're not universal. When you step outside that bubble and encounter places where the priorities are different, where community matters more than convenience, where collective rules matter more than individual freedom. It feels broken. It feels backwards. It feels like everyone else is doing it wrong. But they're not doing it wrong. They're just doing it differently. And the panic only happens because we forget that our normal is learned, not natural. Every system is someone's weird foreign setup. The German grocery bagger sees American checkers and thinks, why do they need someone to bag for them? Are they children? The Swiss pool lifeguard visits America and thinks, why is everyone yelling? Don't they respect shared spaces? It goes both ways. The real reason Americans panic in new systems isn't because the systems are bad. It's because American systems trained them not to adapt. Everything is explained, everything is easy, everything bends toward customer comfort. So when that safety net disappears, the instinct is to freeze, to complain, to insist things should work the way they do back home. But travel isn't about finding your home systems in new places. It's about learning that your way isn't the only way. And maybe, just maybe, some of those foreign systems have good reasons for being the way they are.